news of the day.
Mr. Zimmerman, have you made a decision as to whether or not you want to testify in this case?
With values that never die.
There are certainly a lot of controversies or scandals brewing right now when it comes to the Obama administration.
This is American Heartland with Dr. Grace.
Dealing with the federal government is not always high-tech, and it's not always user-friendly.
The stories that matter.
This is a massive escalation in the tension here in Egypt.
The issues that count.
I don't know why the media tries to make this into a sensation. We have never hidden the fact that we supply Syria with weapons.
This is American Heartland with Dr. Grace.
He's got the red, white, blue flying high on the farm.
Welcome to American Heartland. This is Dr. Grace, the editor of Politics and Culture at WorldTribune.com. Every week, upholding values that will never die. Thank you so much for joining me today. Unfortunately, the news again is bad. The nation is now gripped in Ebola, fear, anxiety, and perhaps even panic. Some people are asking, why is President Obama not being proactive, more proactive? Why did he allow that Liberian man to come into this country when we knew the source of this disease comes from West Africa? Why are not all flights from that area currently banned? He told us that we wouldn't have this problem in the United States. But that is not true. And Ebola fears are spreading as a second nurse has been diagnosed, a second nurse who treated the original Ebola patient who died. And she is now being rushed for treatment herself. Unfortunately, she took a flight to Cleveland, and now everyone who was on that flight, especially the returning flight, at that point she had the symptoms, is being contacted. So it looks like Ebola is in the United States and it is spreading. It is spreading quite rapidly. Now, to answer the first question, why has Obama not been proactive enough? I'll tell you why. Everything he does has fundamentally a political motive. What he wants to do is send a message to especially his African-American base, to come out and vote for him during the midterms. So he's much, much more interested in sending them the signals that he wants to send to get them energized to vote than he is in protecting the rest of us. And I'll tell you what I mean. All of his efforts are focused on the disease in West Africa. He has sent American troops there, and he may be sending even more troops there to build centers to help that area of the world contain the virus. He says that that's in our national security interest. Well, Mr. President, it's just as much in our national security interest for you to ban incoming flights from that part of the world. But the point is this: the president desperately needs African Americans to come out and vote for him during the midterms. So he wants to send the signal that he is standing with them, with especially their West Africans, brothers and sisters or relatives, family members, or just an affinity with West Africa. He wants to send the signal that he cares just as much about their well-being and as much about their economy. Because one of the reasons that the CDC has said again and again is we can ban flights there is because it would affect their economy. The president wants to send the signal to African Americans that he cares about poor blacks dying there. And it's very clear that his focus is more on West Africa than it is on the United States. Everything he has said to try to reassure us is simply not working. So that's one reason. Another reason he's trying to damp down fears here in the United States is he understands that the more we realize what a danger Ebola is to this country, the more it's going to affect the economy. This week, we had a tremendous scare on the stock market where stocks tumbled dramatically based on this Ebola crisis. And the president, facing what looks like a shellacking in the midterms, is eager to try to calm everybody down so that there isn't a further effect on the American economy. And let me tell you, quite frankly, from a personal point of view, and I'm sure that this scenario that I'm going to describe is being replicated all over the country. Before this Ebola crisis, my family and I were jubilant because we were thinking about the Thanksgiving holiday coming up. My husband has vacation time during Thanksgiving and the week after. We began to look at foreign destinations. Where should we go? Should it be St. Lucia? Should it be Aruba? Should it be Bermuda? We were so excited. And my sister was going to join us, my sister who lives in Scottsdale. And recently, she and I have been texting one another, no flying, let's not go anywhere. It's too dangerous. I don't want to get on a plane. I'm not getting on a plane. She doesn't want to get on a plane. In addition, we'd been talking about the Christmas holidays. Is my sister and my niece from Montreal going to come over? Is my sister in Scottsdale going to come over to our home to enjoy Christmas? Right now, the texts and phone conversations we're having is nobody move. Call us paranoid. Nobody get on a plane. Now, this conversation that we're having, I'm sure is being replicated all across the country. And it's going to have a tremendous effect on our economy. It already is beginning to have a tremendous effect on our economy. It's going to destroy whatever tenuous recovery we have had. It's going to be a tremendous setback. It is inevitable. And I got to tell you how immediate this Ebola crisis is striking my family. My brother-in-law works a couple of miles out of Cleveland. He's a doctor. And he says that in his particular clinic, there are tons and tons of doctors who regularly go to West Africa and back to the United States. They do so to go to conferences. And in my recent conversation with my sister-in-law, she's petrified that he might contract something. And they are begging, they're wishing for some kind of a travel ban. In addition, because that nurse traveled to Cleveland, they fear, and I fear, for my nephews who live in Cleveland. What if this thing spreads from the passengers who may have contracted it from that nurse? And again, when we talked about no family member is going to take a plane during Thanksgiving, we then began the other conversation. Hey, should we just hop in a car and go see our nephews in Cleveland? And now we're thinking, no, stay the hell away from Cleveland. So if my own family is a microcosm of how we're not going to spend as much as we would have otherwise spent, we're not going to travel as much as we would otherwise have traveled during this holiday season, you think about the impact that this is going to have across the entire country, especially since from Thanksgiving into Christmas is one of the key spending periods in the nation. It is the time when so many retailers make the biggest bucks, and it is the time when so much of the entire travel industry reaps big bucks. So the consequences of this Ebola scare for our economy are tremendous. And that's another reason why the president is not really being forthcoming with the American people. He's trying to act like, hey, this is just a cakewalk. We'll get this under control. Listen to his most recent statements.
I want to use myself as an example just so that people have a sense of the science here. I shook hands with, hugged, and kissed, not the doctors, but a couple of the nurses at Emory because of the valiant work that they did in treating one of the patients. They followed the protocols, they knew what they were doing, and I felt perfectly safe doing so. And so this is not a situation in which, like a flu, the risks of a rapid spread of the disease are imminent. If we do these protocols properly, if we follow the steps, if we get the information out, then the likelihood of widespread Ebola outbreaks in this country are very, very low.
Well, you know, this doesn't reassure me one little bit. If I were the president, I would monitor my health going forward very carefully. If a fever breaks out, sir, you should take great precautions with that fever. In fact, I find this statement even more alarming because on top of anybody else who may have been affected, now we have to worry about whether our own president will come down with this disease. I mean, I think that his comments are absolutely nutty. His attempts to tamp down fear are actually backfiring, and they're backfiring because his tone should be one of concern and alarm, recognizing what we're up against. That would be more reassuring. But when you try to downplay a situation in which folks who get this are either dying or coming very close to dying, if you're not acknowledging how grave it is and how worried the American people are about it and how these protocols in some cases are not being properly followed, if you're not acknowledging all of that, then we can't be reassured by anything that you're saying. In addition, the White House press secretary was asked, well, why on earth are you not doing the basic ban flights from West Africa? And this is what he had to say.
Just two quick ones. Still no consideration of a travel ban from the affected countries in Africa.
That's something that is not on the table at this point. And again, the reason for that, just in case people haven't heard the previous answer that I've given to this question, it's important for people to understand exactly why that's the case. Shutting down travel to that area of the world would prevent the expeditious flow of personnel and equipment into the region. And the only way for us to stop this outbreak and to eliminate any risk from Ebola to the American public is to stop this outbreak at the source. So we are mobilizing significant resources to make sure that supplies and personnel can get to the affected region and start meeting the needs of the affected region so that we can stop the outbreak there. And that's why right now the travel ban is not on the table.
Well, this is absolute nonsense. What the president needs is to enact a twofold strategy. Do everything you can to stop the outbreak at the source, but also, and I would say the first priority is make sure that we no longer have any infected people coming into this country, because you're only going to make the situation worse if that's the case. Well, this is a weak, incompetent, and gaffe-prone administration, and that is on display almost on a daily basis. Their lack of proactive measures on Ebola is a case in point. But, you know, no matter how bad the news gets, you always have Susan Rice putting the National Security Advisor, putting her foot in her mouth every single time. Listen to what she said about Turkey.
Our interest is in the following. First of all, the Turks have, just in the last several days, made a commitment that they will, in the first instance, allow the United States and our partners to use Turkish bases and territory.
And what an embarrassing moment that was, because subsequently, the Turks let it be known that no such deal had been struck. And this reminds us that Obama can't make good decisions because he's surrounded by fellow incompetents. You'll remember how she put her foot in her mouth when it came to explaining what had happened in Benghazi. And then she followed that up by telling us that Bo Bergdahl had served with honor and distinction, and that his coming home was a joyous occasion for the American people, even though we had swapped 5 Taliban commanders to get him back. Not only had she put her foot in her mouth so deep in explaining how Bo Bergdahl had served, she followed that up, if you remember, by putting her foot in her mouth even deeper, defending the phrase that this obvious deserter had served with honor and distinction. Check this out.
I realize there's been a lot of discussion and controversy around this, but what I was referring to is the fact that this was a young man who volunteered to serve his country in uniform at a time of war. That is itself a very honorable thing.
But honor and distinction.
Jim, really, I mean, this is a young man whose circumstances we are still going to learn about. He is, as all Americans, innocent until proven guilty. He's now being tried in the court of public opinion after having gone through enormously traumatic 5 years of captivity, his parents the same. I think what we need to care most about is his health and well-being and recovery. There'll be an opportunity, and the military has committed to review the circumstances of his capture. If there is a consequence that results from that, that will be delivered. But in the meantime, let's remember, this is a young man who volunteered to serve his country. He was taken as a prisoner of war. He suffered in captivity. He's now trying to begin the process of recovery. Let's let that happen. And then let's know the facts, including his side of the story, and then we can make a judgment.
Well, that was Susan Rice, totally tone deaf regarding Bo Bergdahl. By the way, we're still waiting for the military to give us a full review of his activities there. That's another thing the administration is just trying to brush under the rug. However, there we go. Susan Rice, another gaffe this week, a really embarrassing gaffe, and it sends the message to the American people that this president is incompetent and he surrounds himself by incompetent people, and therefore we have no confidence, zero confidence, that he's going to get this Ebola crisis under control.
The stories that matter, the issues that count. This is American Heartland with Dr. Grace. This is American Heartland with Dr. Grace.
Welcome back to American Heartland, and the heat is on in the midterm elections. We are getting closer and closer to that decisive vote. Big news regarding the midterm elections. One has to do with the campaign in Kentucky. The candidacy of Allison Lundergan Grimes is imploding right before our eyes, and Hillary Clinton is rushing to try to save her. And even bigger news for North Carolina, as Tom Tillis, the Republican Senate candidate, is now inching ahead of Kay Hagan, the incumbent Democratic senator. So we want to take this time to examine these key races. And before I do so, though, a small programming note. We're launching a new feature on American Heartland, and it is a letters section. I want to hear from you. If you have comment to make or questions to ask, or you just want to say hello, Dr. Grace, please email me at valuesthatneverdie@hotmail.com. So the email address is valuesthatneverdie@hotmail.com. Every week at the end of the show, I'm going to read your letters and give a response. I will choose a few of the most compelling, make them short, make them interesting, make them brilliant, and don't forget to include your name and the city or town in which you reside, your first name at least. I know that some of you want to keep your identity private, and I respect that. So send me a line, valuesthatneverdie@hotmail.com. Now to those midterms. Allison Lundergan Grimes, the Democratic Senate candidate in Kentucky, made a huge gaffe. She's trying to unseat Senator Mitch McConnell, and her candidacy blew up because in trying to distance herself from the president, she went too far. Listen to this.
Did you vote for President Obama, 2008, 2012?
You know, this election, it isn't about the president. It's about
but
making sure we put Kentuckians back to work.
Did you vote for him?
I was actually in 2008 a delegate for Hillary Clinton, and I think that Kentuckians know I'm a Clinton Democrat through and through. I respect the sanctity of the ballot box, and I know that the members of this editorial board do as well.
So you're not going to answer?
Again, I don't think that the president is on the ballot as much as Mitch McConnell might want him to be. It's my name, and it's going to be me who's holding him accountable for the failed decisions and votes that he has made against the people of Kentucky.
Did you notice that? She couldn't even say President Obama. She wanted to distance herself so badly from him that she just referred to him as president. Now, this is a trend going on across the country as you have Democratic candidates telling the president, stay away from our campaigns. They're even distancing themselves from Pelosi and from Reid. But Allison Lundergan Grimes went way too far, citing the sanctity of the ballot box. for her refusal to say whether or not in 2008 she voted for Obama? Well, who else would she have voted for? And she's trying to run and hide behind Hillary Clinton, basically saying, I'm a Clinton Democrat. Well, what happened to the Clinton Democrats? Where are they? They were basically completely destroyed by the president. They don't even exist anymore. They were destroyed in 2010 when so many of the moderate Democrats were wiped out as the electorate said, no, we don't like Obamacare and we're going to punish you guys. And the moderate Democrats were completely wiped out. So these Clinton Democrats, I mean, they don't exist anymore. Her answer was pure amateur hour. And even the left-wing lunatics had to say that the candidacy of Alison Lundergan Grimes was fatally crippled. Listen to this.
Well, and the idea of, even to say you regret your vote, that would almost seem as disingenuous. But that is, in Kentuckians expect her to cast a tough vote on anything? Is she ever going to answer a tough question on anything? You want to be a U.S. senator? If you can't find a way to stand behind your party's president, you can disagree with him, but you can't answer that basic question and come across looking that ridiculous. I mean, I think she disqualified herself. I really do. I think she disqualified herself.
Doesn't this point to the issue that Democrats always had with her candidacy to begin with, that she wasn't very good on the, on the stump?
She doesn't have good instinct.
Yes.
Yeah, she didn't.
Well, you know what this does tell us, too? One of the key strategies that all Republican candidates should use in the midterms is ask that question. Ask the question in debate. Who did you vote for in 2008? Who did you vote for in 2012? Not just ask them to explain their voting record, but actually who they voted for. And put them on the defensive. You voted for the president. His policies have failed. What responsibility are you taking for this? And the response is going to be one of two, and both of them are going to give Republicans an advantage. Either they're going to have to dodge the question like Alison Lundergan Grimes, and then that makes them look extremely weak, because if they're not tough enough to answer a question directly, they're not tough enough to be senator. Or they're going to have to answer it by saying, yes, I voted for him in 2008. I also voted for him in 2012. And the public is going to say, well, do we want a repeat of this person who seemed to have bought the Obama line, hook, line, and sinker? Do we still want to go in that direction? Most of the country is saying the current direction of the country is wrong. We're on the wrong track. So this is one way that you can pigeonhole a Democrat and lead to collapsing poll numbers. Now, some of the other Democratic candidates are much more cagey. They're much more savvy than she was in answering this question. But it shows you the very line of questioning exposes these candidates. It opens them up to a whole range of very effective attacks. Big news in North Carolina. Big news. For months, the Democratic incumbent Senator Kay Hagan was running ahead of Tom Tillis, the Republican challenger. And recently, because of his a series of attack ads, because of his debate performances, he has risen in the polls. He has tied her. And for the first time, according to Real Clear Politics, he's now ahead. He's edging ahead of her. He's leading now by about 1.5 percentage points, according to the average of polls taken. And this means that the Republicans are pouring money into North Carolina. They have just decided to pour in about $6 million. A lot of attention going to this race. This race is going to be a bellwether race. If we take this seat from Kay Hagan, there's going to be a huge victory for Republicans across the country. So all eyes now on North Carolina, and I say also all hands on deck. Everybody do what you can to knock off Kay Hagan. And why? I'll give you a million reasons why. First of all, Kay Hagan has been blasted effectively for not having been proactive enough, just like the president, in policies that would have curtailed the rise of ISIS, which has proven to be a catastrophe in Iraq. She, in fact, was soundly criticized for having chosen to go to a fundraiser instead of a key committee hearing about ISIS. And she and her staff tried to lie to the American people about where she really was, and then it came out that she chose a fundraiser instead of a committee hearing. Listen to this.
We have a Democratic incumbent in North Carolina, another one of the great racists. That heard a lot of great racists, and she's in a bit of hot water. She had a debate yesterday, and after the debate, she conceded. Her staff for months had been saying, had been saying that she missed a Senate hearing on ISIS because she was at another Senate hearing. Yesterday, after the debate, Kay Hagan, the Democratic incumbent, concedes, and you listen here, that she wasn't at another hearing. She was at a fundraiser.
You know, there was one. And what had happened at that hearing, it was scheduled early in the day. And then votes were scheduled, and that hearing then had to be postponed later that day. So, yes, I did miss that one.
Yes, she did miss that one, and that does happen sometimes. The schedule does get juggled around, but the staff knew where she was, and the staff was trying to suggest for some time that she was at another hearing. Does this have an impact on what she has been slightly ahead? This is one of the races Democrats have been happy about, where you have an embattled incumbent slightly ahead. Does something like this, her credibility, a fundraiser instead of an ISIS hearing, does that change that race?
You know, it's one of the surprising issues that Republicans have used, not just in North Carolina, but in New Hampshire and Iowa, the issue of missing committee hearings. And like you said, John, it happens a lot. It's not that uncommon.
Well, her credibility was badly damaged because her staff was not forthright. So basically, her staff was lying for her. And what did North Carolinians see in that moment? They saw that just like Obama, she often prefers fundraising rather than doing her job. And when she's caught red-handed, instead of coming clean, she prefers to dodge and lie until she has no choice but to tell the truth. So this was a really effective attack because it showed her to lack credibility, and it pegged her as behaving in the same manner as President Obama. Well, ads by Americans for Prosperity have been extremely effective in also painting Kay Hagan as tone deaf. Just like the president has not heard the cries of the American people when they have said, we hate Obamacare, Kay Hagan has done the same, supporting Obamacare, even though the public has said loud and clear, this policy is full of problems and flaws, and we want major changes. Check out this ad, which has shown her to be just as tone deaf on Obamacare as Obama himself.
Women are the driving force of the new economy. They balance the family checkbook. They start businesses, create jobs. But Kay Hagan just doesn't get it. Instead of listening to North Carolina, Hagan continues to push for Obamacare. Hagan supports waivers for friends of Obama and special treatment for Congress and their staffs. And who gets stuck with the bill? Families and small businesses. Kay Hagan, taking care of Washington insiders, not North Carolina families. Tell Kay Hagan that's just wrong.
Bingo. Kay Hagan tries to present herself as compassionate. She tries to present herself as a champion of the middle class. She tries to present herself as on the side of the people. But you know what? In reality, she's a Washington insider who ultimately backs policies that further this culture of corruption. And that ad exposes that so brilliantly. And just like Obama, she is often caught not doing her job. In a recent debate, Tom Tillis asked her, instead of attending so many of the committee hearings, the Armed Services Committee hearings, of which she is a part, instead of attending those, you chose to go elsewhere. Where did you go? Where were you? What was more important? Especially since in North Carolina, there is a very large military community. They and their families need to know all of the latest information, all of the latest happenings on these committees. So why is your attendance on this committee so poor? This is what she said, dodging the question.
George, I'm on the Armed Services Committee.
Okay.
It
So
seems like what you're saying to me, Speaker
rephrase my
Tillis.
question.
I understand your question.
Okay.
Seems what you were saying is that I am not briefed on the issues at hand having to do in particular with ISIS. Please know that a year ago, this past spring, at a hearing, I actually asked about arming and training the moderate Syrian rebels at that time. That was actually before we knew what ISIS was. And I really think that if we had taken that step, we would not have seen the proliferation of these barbaric terrorists rise to the extent that they have today. Please know that I have chaired numerous counterterrorism hearings. I have met with General Dempsey, who's chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Secretary Hagel, on numerous occasions. Recently, we had a closed briefing and we had an open meeting with Secretary Hagel and General Dempsey. I asked numerous questions, and at the closed briefing, I was probably the last senator to leave after 3 or 4 hours of open dialogue about what we need to do as far as ISIS. So, folks, I am well informed on these issues. I have been decisive on what to do to take out ISIS in the Khorasan. But once again,
you know, I have to ask the question, how does she know how well informed she is if she missed so many of the meetings? I mean, there was obviously information there that was transmitted that she doesn't know. And I also have to ask this question. She said she stayed longer than any other senator. She asked a lot of questions. Did she have to ask all these questions because she had missed so many previous meetings? Did she stay longer to make up for her failure before? I don't think she did herself any services by answering the question the way that she did. She didn't do herself any favor whatsoever. To me, it came across as dodging, and it also painted her again, just like Obama, a long-winded answer that's not forthright and that simply does not satisfy. Well, Tom Tillis has done a brilliant job attacking her voting record. And he keeps saying again and again, essentially a vote for her is a vote for Obama. Look at her voting record. Listen to his ad.
But Senator Hagan's record is different. She voted the Obama party line 96% of the time. I'm Tom Tillis. I approve this message. I'll stand up to the president, and I'll stand up for you.
Well, in the last debate, she tried to present herself as a moderate, not somebody who went whole hog with the president. Well, what are the facts? If you voted for the president's policies 96% of the time, that means there is no daylight between you and him. So a vote for Kay Hagan is a vote for Obama, pure and simple. And folks, if all of these points haven't convinced you that you need to do everything in your power to knock her out of her seat, then perhaps this ad will move you in a way that none will. Kay Hagan supports late-term abortions, just like Obama. She is so callous when it comes to the unborn who have no voice. Listen to this.
I was 23 weeks pregnant. I woke up having lots of stomach pain.
Becca's shaking me awake and saying I'm bleeding.
I did think when I saw the blood that we were probably losing the baby.
Doctors just come in and said, you have a choice. Do you want to try and keep her? We said, absolutely.
I didn't think at 24 weeks you could have a viable baby.
My daughter Charlotte was born at 24 weeks, 1 pound 7 ounces, 12 inches long.
Seeing her healthy and totally formed, it was the happiest moment of my life.
She's a human being that wants to live, that has a soul, that has a will, has a desire to live.
Charlotte today is the most loving kid. She has a big heart.
For those that are advocating late-term abortions, look at my daughter.
These are babies. This is human life, and we're their only voice.
Kay Hagan supports painful late-term abortions. She's too extreme for North Carolina. Women Speak Out PAC is responsible for the content of this ad.
Too extreme is an understatement. Cold and callous, just like the president she votes with all the time. And you know, the Democrats like to say that they are the ones who can support women's rights. Well, if you think of little baby Charlotte, that's the kind of little baby girl that Kay Hagan has no compassion for. So where's your sympathy for the weakest females in our land? There is none in Kay Hagan's heart. I encourage all of you in North Carolina, get proactive. There is no difference between Kay Hagan and President Barack Obama. Knock her out, and that knocks him out. You're listening to Dr. Grace, upholding values that never die.
The stories that matter, the issues that count. This is American Heartland with Dr. Grace. The stories that matter, the issues that count. This is American Heartland with Dr. Grace.
Something's changing inside you, and don't you know?
Welcome back to American Heartland. This is Dr. Grace, the editor of Politics and Culture at worldtribune.com. Well, this week, more bad news regarding our campaign against the Islamic State. In simple words, it is not working. The airstrike campaign that the president has launched is not stopping ISIS from advancing. They're advancing in Anbar province. They're very close to Baghdad. And worst of all, they are beating down the Kurds in the Syrian border town of Kobani. A tragedy is in the midst of happening there with the Kurdish people who are fighting desperately for their very lives. This week, Eugene Robinson of the Washington Post blasted the president. His piece, Our Failing War Against the Islamic State, asks this very question. I'm not sure whether the president and his aides are guilty of optimism or self-delusion. This was followed by an editorial in the Washington Post asking the same thing. And John McCain has come out and said clearly on CNN and other news outlets, the campaign is simply not working. Here today to discuss the fate of the Kurds is a brilliant woman, one of the most hardworking women I've ever met, Julia Duin. She currently occupies the Sneddon Chair at the University of Alaska Fairbanks Journalism Department. She was an editor at the Washington Times for more than 14 years. She has written for numerous publications like the Wall Street Journal and the Washington Post, amongst many others. She is also the author of several books, and she helped sponsor a Kurdish refugee family in the late 1990s. She's traveled to Kurdistan in 2004. She follows the Kurds and their plights, their needs, their wants, their desires very, very closely. In other words, this is a brilliant woman who knows the Kurdish situation very well. Welcome, Julia.
Thanks so much.
Well, Julia, what are you hearing from your sources about how the Kurds are failing? How are they faring?
Well, you know, I emailed one of my Kurdish friends, and you know they're holding. I mean, it's not like they're losing territory right at the moment, but they're very worried. After when the U.S. was leaving Iraq, they begged for a base. Besides the base in Turkey, they asked for a base in northern Iraq. Why the United States didn't establish one, I have no idea. But we didn't. I mean, the Kurds have been an incredible friend of the United States, and we have treated them very badly over the years. So right now, we have airstrikes. The big battle is around the Syrian town of Kobani. It's sort of in a stalemate as far as I can tell. And, I mean, the U.S. had about 40 airstrikes on it. Turkey is being absolutely impossible, not allowing people to go in from its side of the border. But the Turks have been just a massive problem. The Americans don't know what to do with them. And here you've got an incredible people. I mean, there's 25 million of them, biggest ethnic group in the world without a country.
Right. Now, what can you tell me about the arms that were promised the Kurds? I mean, one of the key aspects of Obama's strategy was we were going to arm troops on the ground. And one of the groups that was identified was the Kurds. We were supposed to give them arms. From what I understand, the arms are not reaching them. Why is that?
Well, I think the problem is the Turks. And because the Turks basically align the Kurds, they all think that they're part of the PKK, which is like the radical wing of the Kurdish forces. And then, of course, the Turks and the PKK have been at each other for ages. I mean, you go into Turkey and they're constantly questioning you whether you have any PKK connections. So they're basically the big wedge in this. They're the cork in the bottle. They're just not letting anything through. The U.S. can't seem to change their minds because Turkey believes that ISIS, the Islamic State, is less dangerous than Bashar, and they want him out before they want the Islamic State out. So I mean, you've got a key ally of the United States is blocking everything.
Right, and the president and his national security advisor trying to tell us differently, that this alliance is working smoothly, that they're cooperating, when in fact they're working contrary to the very strategy that the president laid out. One of the key elements of the strategy was the Kurds were supposed to be armed. They were the vaunted troops on the ground that we would rely on instead of sending American forces. They were absolutely essential to the victory in this strategy, and there's no way that they can defeat ISIS because ISIS has American armaments. You have the most barbaric force in the world right now with the best weapons in the world, our weapons that they captured from the Iraqi army. I don't see how the Kurds can withstand it. I mean, what are you hearing? Are they pessimistic?
Well, I mean, somewhat. I mean, I don't know. There are some people who are actually going in to fight for the Kurds. I don't know if you've read any of the Wire stories. I mean, one is really, really funny about the Dutch biker gang that has gone to join the Kurds in the fight against ISIS. And, you know, you can see pictures of them armed with these Kalashnikov rifles. And they said they've been tweeting that they're going to exterminate the rodents, ISIS, which is just a riot. I'm just thought, well, good for the Dutch. I mean, at least someone is traveling to Mosul to try to kill off the Islamic State people. But, you know, the United States has just not known what to do with the Kurds. They're just so wedded to Turkey. And, you know, their alliances with Turkey, and they've been dithering ever since I kind of started looking into this in the late 90s. I mean, the Kurds need independence. That's what they need. It's just that no major country seems to want to support that. Well, except for Israel and France. You know, the United States doesn't seem to want to anger anybody. As a result, they seem to anger everybody, and we can't. Our legs are in both camps, so we kind of help the Kurds, we kind of not. And so no, the Kurdish Peshmerga. That's the name of their army. Mm-hmm. I mean, they're very good. When I was there, I tell you, it was just amazing. The security was fabulous. I mean, it was the only place in Iraq where you could travel about freely without someone kidnapping you. I mean, they had checkpoints everywhere. The Peshmerga are good, but they're not Supermen.
Right, exactly. And without weapons, they're without the weapons that they desperately need and they've been begging for, I'm very pessimistic. And I fear a wholesale slaughter. That's exactly what I fear. Now, Julia, tell us about the Kurds from an intimate, personal point of view. You know a lot about them because you hosted a refugee family of Kurds. You got to know them extremely well. Tell us about the nature of their faith, because what we're also seeing in the Middle East right now, there's a religious war there.
Well, I mean, most of them are Sunni Muslim, but there is an openness to Christianity among them that you don't see among other groups, Islamic groups, because basically they feel that they're the Jews of the Arab world. I mean, they get punched, they get kicked around, they get persecuted. Everybody seems to hate the Kurds, so they have seen the bad side of Islam actually way before anybody else has, and a lot of them aren't willing to give it up yet, but there is so much more of an openness among the Kurds than anywhere else. I mean, I visited a very effective church in Diyarbakir, which is sort of like the Turkish Kurdish capital. I mean, they don't really want to say much publicly. I think there's a lot of stuff going on privately. There are churches, there are house groups, there are all sorts of things. When I went in 10 years ago, it was a missionary group that snuck me in there. So, there's stuff going on. Again, with Muslims, you just hate to say anything publicly because, the religious tolerance is not a major factor with them. So, I mean, they'll kill you. So so I think there's a lot of stuff going on underground, but people are not saying much. So, but yeah, they are open. I was amazed when I was there. Like the Christian TV stations there, like Daystar, if you've heard of that. I mean, it was amazing. You turn on the TV and you could see all this Christian stuff. I bet you couldn't see that in Riyadh.
So you're saying that they're more tolerant of the Christian faith than the other Muslims that you witnessed in the region, essentially.
Oh, yeah, because they've been beat up upon by their fellow Muslims. So I think they hold the Muslim ones, they hold their faith very lightly. And just sort of anything could cause them to could turn. I mean, I think they are called the most open people group in the Middle East. And so that's why I just shake my head about why the U.S. seems so back and on and off again with these folks. I mean, yes, we had a no-fly zone, but then we wouldn't do a base. We wouldn't I mean, we should have had a consulate way up in the Kurdish north. I mean, the furthest north we went was Erbil. They were begging us for a consulate up in Duhok, which is much closer to the Turkish border and could have reached a lot of people. And in fact, there are folks who are, this is a whole other story, and I won't really touch on it except to say there's a whole army of former translators for the U.S. military who now are afraid to go anywhere in Iraq, and so they're hiding out in the Kurdish mountains. And they need to get here. They can't get the visas. They can't get the passports, anything, because they can't get to Baghdad, which is where you have to go. And so the United States they won't help these people. They won't send an officer up to Erbil or Duhok. And so you just think, come on, folks. I mean, when you have allies, when you have people begging you to side with them, and then we just sit there and twiddle our thumbs. I've just wondered about it for years now.
Well, that's brilliant analysis, Julia. Thank you so much. You've been on the forefront of an investigation into the Kurds, into their needs, their wants, their desires. I know that you've been outspoken in defense of their interests for a long time, and today you've given us insight that we haven't gotten from many other news sources. If you want to purchase any of the books that Julia Duin has written, you can go to juliaduin.com. She has written Days of Fire and Glory, The Rise and Fall of a Charismatic Community, and Leaving Church, Why the Faithful Are Fleeing. Thank you so much for being with us today, Julia.
You're welcome, Grace.
Well, you have heard it here. The Kurds, who are supposed to be our allies in the region, are in essence being left high and dry by this president and his administration. Shame on you.
This is American Heartland with Dr. Grace. The stories that matter, the issues that count. This is American Heartland with Dr. Grace.
We try to take it slow, but we're still losing control. And we try to make it work, but it still ends up the worst, and I'm crazy.
Welcome back to American Heartland. Love that song, especially the shut up, shut up, shut up, shut up, because this is Did They Really Say That segment. We're going to discuss Gwyneth Paltrow. But before I do, I just want to remind the audience that starting next week, we're launching a new segment. I want to hear from you. Send me your comments. Send me your letters. Send me hello, Dr. Grace. Send me anything you want at valuesthatneverdie@hotmail.com. Write to me, valuesthatneverdie@hotmail.com. We have a growing audience, both from internet streaming in North Carolina itself, and then from YouTube, which we repost every single show afterwards. So I want to hear from all of you. Send me your comments. I'm going to choose the most interesting, and I'm going to respond. Some of you may just have a question you want to ask, and everything is fair game. I'll take a look, and hopefully all of you will enjoy our new letter segment. So valuesthatneverdie@hotmail.com. Well, shut up, Gwyneth Paltrow. Really. I'm sure you heard about this. I didn't have time to address it previously, but this really just gets under my skin. Gwyneth Paltrow held a fundraiser for the president in her Brentwood backyard. And by the way, so many of the neighbors were really annoyed. There was an uproar because there was a huge traffic problem that was created by this fundraiser. But what made national headlines are the statements she made about the president. So in introducing him, she gushed as follows, quote, "You're so handsome that I can't speak properly." She also described herself as one of his, quote unquote, biggest fans, if not the biggest. Well, this is so unacceptable. She is recently, she's in the process of divorcing Chris Martin. I'm not sure if her divorce is final or not, is final yet. She's a mom of two. And when she began the process of divorcing her husband, she called this conscious uncoupling. Like, she's very civilized in how she breaks up with a man, how she kicks the father of her children to the curb. I don't know how you can pretend to be civilized over something that at its very core is a very ugly deed, which is the dissolution of a family. There's no civilized way of doing that. In fact, that very act is the antithesis of civilization. So I think she's an absolute hypocrite in how she tried to describe the unfolding of her marriage, especially since there was so much infidelity rumors going back and forth on both sides, both she and he rumored to not have been faithful throughout that marriage. So pretty disgusting behavior. But what really gets under my skin, to be honest with you, is that the nation knows that President Barack Obama is a married man. In addition, he is a father of 2. So, in full public view, you are flirting with the President of the United States. That is just disgusting behavior. It is a huge affront to the First Lady. If I were her, I would be livid with Gwyneth Paltrow. How dare you flirt with my husband at all, let alone in front of all these people, let alone in a way that makes national headlines, let alone the fact that you're another blonde and the First Lady was embarrassed by the Danish Prime Minister flirting with Barack Obama, the leggy blonde who flirted with him mercilessly, relentlessly throughout the memorial service of Mandela. So her comments showed such a lack of civility, such a lack of class, such a lack of any kind of moral compass. What was she trying to achieve there? Was she trying to get him to go out on a date with her? That's what it looks like. Obviously, she doesn't care if he's married, if she was able to break her own marital vows. So really disgusting. And equally disgusting that she wasn't called out on it by her own Hollywood friends. I mean, they should have recognized that this is a huge affront to the First Lady. I mean, if nothing else, the first couple is supposed to be adored by Hollywood. Well, what about those who are supposed to be loyal to the First Lady? Obviously, it didn't matter very much, did it? Sex trumps morality in Hollywood, as we see again and again. And to make matters worse, then she said this: "It would be wonderful if we were able to give this man all of the power that he needs to pass the things that he needs to pass." And she cited stuff like sustainable energy efforts, as well as his push for equal pay, which she called, of course, quote unquote, very important to me as a working mother. Now, folks like to criticize Gwyneth Paltrow as not being very representative of working moms because she's a multimillionaire who doesn't have to work at all. And when she works very little for a huge paycheck. So there's been a lot of criticism about her, about, you know, she shouldn't try to identify with working moms because she really isn't part of the class of working moms. That, to be honest with you, doesn't outrage me. Nowhere near as much as her flirting openly with the leader of this nation, with her insulting Michelle Obama the way that she did, with her being a poor example to her own children and to the children of Barack Obama. And now she shows complete lack of regard for our Constitution. Hey, Gwyneth, we have something here in this country called Congress. We have a House. We have a Senate. We have checks and balances. We don't want a dictatorship. We don't want to give this man, quote unquote, all the power that he needs. We won't want to give any man all the power that he needs or wants or craves. That's why, moron, we fought a revolution against a king that was deemed tyrannical. And we decided that as a nation, we want power to be dispersed so that no one person can enact his or her will against the wishes of the country. And to make matters worse, she wants to give this man all the power that he needs for what? When the American people are saying we reject his policies, his poll numbers are tanking. It's now 40% according to Gallup, and in so many individual states, he's at 30%. The situation is so bad, as we discussed before, that his own fellow Democrats are running from him. You have fellow Washington Post columnists attacking him, and Gwyneth Paltrow is saying give him more power. The people are saying, take away his power, give him less power. But you know what? She can't think straight because she's more interested in flirting with him than she is in actually doing any kind of good for her country. You're listening to Dr. Grace, and again, I'm upholding values that are never going to die.
I was born by God's dear grace in an extraordinary place, with the stars and stripes and the eagle flies.
This is American Heartland with Dr. Grace.